Hello everyone and welcome to a new play and chat video. This time I'm playing Medal of Honor, the original game that was on the PlayStation 1. This is still one of the best versions, or should I say one of the best Medal of Honor games, despite the fact that it was the first. I wonder how often that's the case, where one of the first or the first in a franchise turns out to be the best or one of the best. The most notable thing perhaps with this game is that it plays completely differently to where Medal of Honor ended up. I think it's kind of interesting that after the release of Call of Duty, Medal of Honor seemed to then start to try to copy that format a lot more closely and kind of lost it sort of lost the original format and appeal that it had. One thing I noticed playing on the PlayStation 1 version is it's a lot more of a slow-paced game. It was, you weren't sort of leaping from one intense firefight to another. It definitely was a lot more of a considered pace, and it seemed to suit the type of game a lot more. You're playing the role of an OSS agent as opposed to a one-man killing machine that you tend to be in the later games. And it's a shame, really, Electronic Arts have lost sight of this, because it would have made for a much more interesting alternative, I think, to Call of Duty, had it retained the more what can I say? If it had just retained more of the original gameplay design. But I suppose these days it's like any other thing. Most people tend to want instant explosion, gratification, Rambo-esque one-man army type games, like Call of Duty. Where you know the reality of a situation is thrown out of the window. You're surrounded by hundreds of bad guys for you to dispatch. Where this game, I don't know. It just feels. I can't really say more realistic. I mean, it's still. It's still a first-person shooter using the Second World War as a backdrop, and it's all very, where eagles dare type of stuff. But I don't know. I think what I'm trying to say is more interesting to play than the sort of rinse and repeat games like Call of Duty, and sadly, how Medal of Honor has become that way as well. One thing I noticed as well, even though it's on the PS1, graphically, I was really impressed with it. Obviously, look, you can tell you're playing on a PS1 game, but, graphically wise, it's really got a lot going for it. I mean, it stands up quite well, even by today's standards. Like I say, you're playing a PS1 game. I mean, obviously I'm not stupid enough to compare it to, modern games, because naturally the processing power of the PlayStation 1 is nowhere near as powerful as the 360 or the PS3 or even the Wii. But at the same time, what they achieved with that hardware back, I think this came out in 1999 or 2000, something like that. Anyway, I mean, it's a number of years old, and what they achieved was pretty darn good. What I like as well is that the enemy soldiers have hit points. So I mean, if you shoot them, like you probably saw just before, I shot one of them in the leg, and he starts hopping around. Those type of features were relatively new back then. I mean, this, as I say, this was sort of like the beginning of a new generation of games on games consoles, because first-person shooters hadn't really worked at all on a games console. I mean, there was Time Splitters, But that came out on the PlayStation 2. Doom was Doom worked, but I mean, Doom wasn't as much into a sort of 3D type environment. And what I mean by that is, when you play Doom, it uses a lot of trickery into thinking that it's a fully 3D game, which it isn't. I mean, you can't walk under the stairs in Doom. The staircases actually take you up to a whole new level in the game. It's kind of a bit difficult to explain, but when you play Doom, it's not a true 3D. I mean, that was something that was one of the things that Quake had. To put it simply, in the unadulterated version of Doom, I'm not talking about ones which have been modified. In the original game, looking up and down wasn't an option. So the 3D was more of an illusion effect than an actual physical effect. Whereas this game on the PS1, you could look up and down, and it really sounds quite sort of trivial by today's standards, but back then this type of technology was new, and nothing like it. I don't want to make a sweeping statement saying nothing like it had been seen on consoles before, because I always end up putting my foot in my mouth when I say that. As somebody can always wheel a game out that says, look, this game had it. And I know there was another PlayStation 1 game that utilised the up and down look, and I had the game and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. It was kind of... It had aliens in it and stuff like that. I can't remember what it was. But this was, should I say, one of the first, and it sort of set a trend, and it proved that first-person shooter could successfully be put onto a games console and have more complexity to it than just your standard run and gun affairs that Doom had. I mean, don't get me wrong. Doom on the PlayStation was a remarkable achievement, and it is, as I've said in earlier videos, for one reason or another, it is my favourite version of Doom, even though it is by no means the definitive. I mean, the PC remained the definitive version of Doom, and still does as far as I'm concerned, even though you can pick it up now. Well, actually, you can no longer pick it up on Xbox Live Marketplace. For some unknown reason, it's been taken down. Doom 2 is still there, but you can't download the original Doom now. So yeah, I suppose it's fair to say that the PC version does remain the definitive version of the game from a technical standpoint. But this really was a game that was built with the console in mind from the ground up. It wasn't built with a PC in mind. I mean, the PC version of Medal of Honor Allied Assault was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was on a completely different level to this. That played more like a huge open battlefield that later became more associated with Call of Duty, and it's no incident that the guys who did Allied Assault on the PC left Electronic Arts and went on to form Infinity Ward, which of course the guys were responsible for doing Call of Duty and starting that franchise off with Activision. And the irony, of course, is those guys now have left Activision and gone back to Electronic Arts. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing to see what they come out with on there. Maybe they'll call the game, Call of Honor or Medal of Duty or something like that. That'd be quite amusing. But yeah, I really do like this game. It is a fantastic game to play even now. Going back to it at first, I thought, oh god, I'm going to hate this. But once I got back into the game, I really started to enjoy it. And yeah, it's a really good game. So, moving on really now to my next topic, I just wanted to talk about the Xbox 360 dashboard update, because this is the first play and chat video I've done since the update, and it seems to be quite a divisive update, as these things tend to be. You always get the people who say, oh, I hate the update, it's rubbish, it's, you know, why have they changed it, I preferred the old one. And then you get those who, you know, really like it, and they say, oh, the update's really good, it's improved things, you know, it's a lot better now. I sort of sit somewhere in between. I like the new style. I like how they've brought it into line with the Windows 7 phone, and how excuse me, and how Windows 8 is going to look. I think that's an important step for Microsoft, and it's a good lesson that they've learned from Apple, because one of the great things about using Apple devices is that if you can use an iPod, the iPod Touch, then you can use the iPhone and you can use the iPad. They use the same type of operating system. The only differences are when you go to the operating systems of the OS X operating system, which is what powers Apple's computers. But even so, there is a greater degree of integration between all of Apple's products, and it really works well for them. It's like a family of hardware using the same software stuff. So you get that greater degree of comfort. You also get the greater degree of compatibility as well between the devices. And I like the idea that Microsoft have gone down that route, because it makes sense for them. They have the Windows Phone, they have the Xbox 360, and they've got the Windows operating system, and it makes sense for them to have this. I mean, people call it Metro. Oh god, I hate these phrases. I touched upon it in my Xenon 2 video about IP. I hate all of these throwaway phrases to describe things. And they are throwaway phrases as far as I'm concerned. It's like somebody somewhere comes up with a phrase, and that's it. It has to catch on. Everybody has to use it. And if you don't use it, nobody knows what the hell you're talking about. I mean, Metro, to me, and I'm going to sound like an old man here, but Metro is a form of transportation. And it's, like a Metrolink, or, a metro system, or it's short for Metropolis. It isn't just applying it to describe an operating system style, if that's the idea behind it, because I've never really delved into it. I just keep saying, Microsoft's new Metro style interface system for the Xbox 360. The minute I saw that kind of article, I turned off to it. I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, what are they going to come out? What's this nonsense that they're coming out with? And it's also, going back to what I was saying in the Xenon 2 video, it's why I hate phrases like IP. IP, intellectual property, doesn't describe what it is. It's a game. I mean, intellectual property covers quite a broad spectrum of things. I mean, it's covers video games. It can cover general software applications for a computer. It can cover anything. I mean, the phrase intellectual property doesn't necessarily specifically have to relate to computer software. I mean, surely it can relate to anything that it can be classified as intellectual property. So when you pick up, when you listen to these people at E3, when you listen or you pick up a magazine, if anybody does that these days, do people still know what magazines are? Them periodicals that you can go out and buy from the shop and sit down and read them without using electricity. Printed on paper, what have you, or on internet websites. and they'll say, you know, this is the new IP from the people that made you the last game that had IP in, or something. I don't know. It really infuriates me. It's a game, okay? The company is making a video game. They're not making intellectual property. They're not selling intellectual property. They are making a video game. Call it a video game. Stop trying to make it something that it isn't. Okay? You don't walk into a shop and say, what's the latest intellectual property you've got? When you walk into Game or walk into HMV or Game Station or wherever you buy your games from on the high street, if people still do that these days. You say, what are the latest video games? Okay, it's not, game isn't called IP, it's called game, because that's what they're selling. Games. They're not selling IP. Okay, call it what it is. Stop trying to make something that it isn't. Stop trying to come out with all of this ridiculous spiel that finds life in a boardroom meeting with people wearing suits who shouldn't have anything to do with the games industry whatsoever, and they come out with this nonsense to try and dress something up in you know, legal phrases and all of this crap. And it spills over into places like E3, places like websites, gaming websites on the internet, because they all think it makes it all sound more clever and more important than what it really is. And it's an absolute nonsense, and I detest it, and I hate it. You should call something what it is. It is a game. It's not IP. It's a game. And you know, the same goes on with all of the other completely ridiculous catchphrases that come out to describe things. This whole Metro business, just don't do it. Why? It doesn't make sense in the context of what it is. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's like you're trying to rewrite the English language, and it's pathetic. You know, it's just utterly pathetic. Just try a bit harder. You know, the English language has an almost inexhaustible supply of words to describe things. Find another word, okay? Not one that's already been claimed by, you know, various other means. But anyway, that's enough about that. I just wanted to get that off my chest because it really annoyed me when I read a description of it, and I was just like, oh, here we go. Here's another crappy phrase. So anyway, the actual system itself, I like the visual style, I like the design of it, but what I don't like is the fact that it's, well, on my 360 anyway, and I've got the 360 Slim, it seems to be quite slow in accessing certain things, and it doesn't seem to be fully functional either. That's the other complaint that I have. For example, when you go to look in your games library, sometimes when you go in, everything shows up, all your game icons show up nice and big on the screen as if it was the cover art of the game. And then you can go in sometimes and these seem to be replaced by a thumbnail. It's almost as if the system is still waiting to actually load in the image of the game itself, and it's replaced it with a thumbnail, but it doesn't actually load the image in slowly. It just stays as a thumbnail. Now, okay, it doesn't stop you accessing the game, and it is a cosmetic thing, but if you're going to go to the time and trouble of making something that is aesthetically pleasing, then, you know, which obviously was the idea behind displaying the games in the style that they did decide to display it. I mean, their intent is obviously to show the full artwork of the game in question, not a thumbnail. It just seems to me that, okay, there's clearly a problem here. It's not working properly. So, although it's not something which is breaking the operating system as such, it is something which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It can't be difficult to fix the problem. So why is the problem there in the first place? Because this has been in through beta trials for quite some time. It's not like they've just pushed it out. It has been in a beta form, in a beta trial for some time, and that's surely something which was picked up on. So why have you not fixed it? If you're going to go to the time and trouble of making something in a particular style, then you have to make sure that that style works all the time. You know, there doesn't appear to be any logical reason why it doesn't, aside from the fact that there's a degree of instability there. And it seems to go spread into a lot of other things. I mean, yesterday I downloaded the YouTube application, and that in itself to me is just it's just a waste of time. I mean, some of my videos aren't showing up on there for some reason or another. You know, my Xenon 2 video doesn't show up on there. When I check on my channel, you know, it'll say it's found, say, I don't know, I can't remember how many videos I've got, but say for example it says 50, 60 videos. When I cycle through, it doesn't actually show me all of the videos. When I get to the end, it'll say something like 48 or 49 or 50. But I can't see the 50th. I can't actually get to the last video. And that's the case with some other channels. I tried to look at, because Steve Benway uploaded a video, and I thought, oh, I'll watch it on, you know, nice idea, watch it big on my TV. And when I accessed his channel on Xbox Live, it wouldn't show up because he's got playlists. And it just appeared that the various playlists wouldn't appear. They just showed out as greyed out boxes, and when I clicked on it, the whole YouTube app just ground to a halt, and it was like it had the little spinning disc in the middle where it's thinking, and it was like that for a few minutes. So I mean, again, it's an application that's clearly not working properly. The integration is clearly not it's not right. It's not working. Now, I read somewhere that somebody said, well, it's in a beta format. Well, that is not how it was sold to me. I mean, that app has been released, a general release. I don't want something that doesn't bloody work. When it's got glaring errors in like that, and they are glaring errors, by the way, I mean, that's not a cosmetic thing. The damn thing, the damn program doesn't work properly. It falls over. Well, what is the point? What is the point in it? I mean, it really annoys me that things aren't tested properly. They're just thrown out there. I don't want to be a beta tester because I don't get paid for it. I don't get paid to sit there and endure a malfunctioning program. Okay, that's not what I want to do, and if I did want to do it, I would expect to be paid for it. You know, no one asks me, do I want to have to endure this? And if people say, well, it's free, you're not paying for it. I pay for Xbox Live Gold, so it is paid for, and it's a piece of functionality that is not working. And I don't care if something is free, to be perfectly honest with you. I get sick and tired of software, of websites, of games, anything that just clearly hasn't been tested properly, that doesn't work properly. It's ridiculous, it's infuriating, and above all, it's annoying. Okay, I mean, I don't want to be sat there having to wade through various problems to get something to work on a console. I mean, this was supposed to be the selling point of a games console over a PC, was you didn't have to you know, go through the rigmarole of having to endure things not working properly on it. You know, you're not having to go into the various excuse me, the various elements or operating system settings or what have you to get games to work, or to get software to work, or to get a piece of hardware to work. The whole premise of the games console was that it works, and that's it. If games consoles are going to go down this path, well, they can go and bugger off, and I'm going back to gaming on the PC. Because gaming on the PC, you have far more games to choose from, they're far more in-depth, they're far more interesting, and you lose the selling point of what a games console is all about. I expect to have these type of things happen to me on a PC. I was a PC gamer for many years, and I expected there to be issues, and I battled through it. You know, I went and found downloads, I went and updated drivers, I went and did this, and I was happy to wait for a fix to come out, because I knew that the complexity of designing a game on a PC when there's a multitude of hardware configurations was always going to lead to issues. You know, even if you had the most popular graphics card, there was always another spanner in the works somewhere, be it, you know, the processor that you had, or the sound card that you had, or even, you know, it could be down to something, you know, like, I don't know, you know, antivirus software was always, a common spanner in the works. Or, you know, I think even in one case, a game I had refused to work if my printer was switched on. You know, it was part of gaming on the PC, and you accept it, and you move on, and you know, you get a certain degree of satisfaction when you wrestle with the problem and get a solution. But the point behind games consoles is you're not supposed to have those problems. You know, the software on the games console is supposed to work out of the box. You're not supposed to have to wait for a patch to get the damn thing to work, because there's no excuse for it. Games consoles have a fixed hardware profile, and by that I mean, okay, you might have a different size hard drive, but essentially the actual, you know, the graphics card, the processor, the sound, all of the key elements to making the game run are all the same. So I don't expect to have to endure any type of software issues on a games console. And if I'm going to have to go through this process, then I'm not going to lash out money for the Xbox 720 or the PS4. I'm not going to do it. It's stupid and it's pointless. The lesson learnt from this generation has got to be, they've got to get back to getting things right. Because this whole business of we just throw things out there in whatever assorted mess it may be, and know that we can fix it with a patch at a later date, is something I don't want to see on a games console. And that goes for applications as well. I am not happy about being used as a guinea pig for a new application that just clearly isn't working properly, hasn't been tested properly, and that's that. You know, release it as a beta, release it as something that's incomplete, but don't put something out there and say, hey look guys, you can now get YouTube and watch all your videos on your Xbox 360, when that's clearly not the case, when it's not working properly. That's all I ask. Test it. At least release it. You know, it's working. I don't mind a minor issue. You know, I'm not being unreasonable, but when something clearly doesn't work, I mean, when it clearly doesn't like playlists, for goodness sake, then there's something fundamentally wrong with it. And it shouldn't have been released. It should not have been released. And, you know, I'd like to think maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my console, but I don't see how that can be the case. You know, I select somebody's channel to watch their videos on, and they have playlists, and it doesn't load the playlists in. It's not a slow web connection, because it just hangs there. It's just not doing anything. It just hangs there, almost indefinitely, and there's no explanation for it. I've been on YouTube's helps forums, I've been on the Xbox's forum. There's no explanation for it. You know, some videos appear, some don't. People have got theories about, copyrighted material and all that claptrap. Well, that's not the case, because there's no difference between my Xenon 2 video and my Alien Storm video. There's no copyright flags on it. So, I don't get it. Why is it not there? It's because it's not working properly, and that's the end of it. Call it as it is. All of these ridiculous explanations are nothing. Oh, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Yeah, this has been more like a play and rant rather than a play and chat. But I think I've just come to the end of my tether this generation. This far in to this cycle of these consoles, we should not be having issues. Players of Skyrim on the PS3 should not be having lag issues due to, let's call it what it is: crap programming, crap development. That's what it is. It's nothing more than that. It's a known issue that they've done nothing about, and I feel sorry for PlayStation 3 owners that have to endure that, because it only happens so many hours into the game. And that happened with me on the Game of the Year edition of Fallout 3. So that gives you an idea of just how old this problem is. I mean, my Fallout 3 used to crash completely. It would just lock up. It would start to judder and would just lock up. It just rendered it unplayable. I ended up having to trade it in for the Xbox version, which worked absolutely fine. And I don't think that's fair. I really don't, and they should be doing more to stop these problems happening. More focus should be put on testing the game and making sure issues like that, which are clearly game-breaking issues, are sorted out. Because, it's not right. And at this stage of the console's life cycle, developers have had plenty enough time to get to grips with the hardware. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it whatsoever. So, anyway, this is the end of my video. It's been a bit of a long one. It's been a bit ranty, but thanks for watching. And please stay tuned to my channel for more videos coming up soon. Thank you very much.